Okay. Anyway, just want to make a quick announcement, which I will try to repeat at the end, which is Sunday is Easter, but Sunday is also the day that we've been meeting outside, okay? Group meeting, not online, although it's broadcast online. And so we're actually going to hold the 11:30 Sunday morning class at Bestor Park, right around the corner from the Martha Street location. So with that, and we're experimenting with, instead of starting the whole thing in the kitchen and walking over, we're already here. It's easier sometimes to move a chair, which I'm sitting in, okay? And, okay. And this is from page 97 of The Heart of Aikido. This is a translation of a book that was in Japanese titled Takemusu Aiki. All right, these are lectures Ueshiba Sensei did for Masahisa Goi Sensei's religious group, the Byakko Shinko Kai. So it's same stuff that is in the secret teachings. It's just to a different group of people. Therefore, maybe his emphasis is a little different. Okay. Aikido practice is purification of the body and mind on all levels. Nothing is too small or too big for our misogi. If people do not understand the principle of Takemusu Aiki, they will only think about winning, never wanting to lose, matching brawn against brawn, bullying the weak and powerless. In short, they take an aggressive attitude. To rid the world of aggression and contention is the purpose of Aikido. The world seems to be getting more and more polluted, so we must work harder to accomplish our mission. There are always a lot of false prophets who profess lofty goals, but always act according to their own agendas and oppress and suppress others. Many claim that we are in the final days of the world's existence, that a last judgment is upon us. We do not believe that. We believe that there is always the possibility to make things better, to get large and small countries to work together as one. These days, material science has advanced so far as to be able to send a rocket to the moon. Obviously, this is before the lunar landing in '68, or else he would have included that. He, by the way, would have been alive for that. Modern science has made life better for many, but we still need to emphasize the development of a spiritual culture that harmonizes matter and spirit. Okay, so we'll start with that today. Yeah. Okay, and what I thought we'd do is all of that's important. And then there's also a training to help us prepare for that. And training means there's an activity. Okay. So, Now, what I thought we'd do, we have the changes, thumb down, thumb up. Call it the water, fire, center circle changes. We have figure 8. Okay, now we can, with the figure 8, switch sides without stopping, not going here and then reversing, but figure 8, figure 8, okay. Okay. Now, we also have movement 22, a version of what we call the two-handed figure 8. So that can be done boom, 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 right? Either right or left, but in the actual set is done with the right side forward. Figure 8 with 2 hands. Figure 8 with 2 hands, other side. Okay? Now, what I thought we'd do, we have the 5 changes. Thumbs away, that's the first change, Ikkyo. Thumbs towards, second change, Nikkyo. Thumbs towards us, third change, Sankyo. Fourth change, boom. Not so much at the position of the hands is the first change on this one, but it's more of a body change. Okay, the fifth change, Gokyo. Okay, and the Gokyo is real good to get into. For example, you can go into a figure 8 one-handed, or you can go into a figure 8 two-handed. One-handed figure 8, two-handed figure 8. Okay, so let's just start out right side. Okay, now I'm doing the figure 8. This is just going to be from here. And what I want us to be able to do is from this figure 8, find the Ikkyo position. Going from this change to Ikkyo. Okay. And you can do that both sides. There's this motion, this figure 8. And boom. In doing this, I mean, I'm reaching, you know. This motion kind of has a harmony to it. Figure 8 motion. Right? At some point, boom. The other half of my body, not the holding half, but not holding half, comes in. Okay. So, motion. And just want us to be able to find first change. The first change. Now, this initially can't be a hand motion. The body is included in that rhythm. See, if it's just out there, then I'm reaching out there. Part of that rhythm out there is an interior rhythm. And if I can get that, then for example, oh. See, part of this, I'm going this way, but to make the change, that interior rhythm slows down. So I can do that. So we're doing this. Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah. Notice how if it's just, so the interior rhythm doesn't stop, but it kind of slows down so that change is smooth. Boom. So my mind and my body, even my spirit to some degree, sloppy, disjointed, too out there. Okay. Okay. So just get a feel for it. Figure eight, one-handed. Okay. Is everybody got a pretty good feel for that? Yes, no? All we're doing is taking this motion and finding the first change. Okay? Now, this is what I call the fire water center circle change. Thumb down from the top, thumb up from the bottom. Okay, and I'm going right now towards my right side. Okay. Now off of this, like us find the first change. Okay, try the other side, which may be more challenging. But off of that, find the first change. Yeah, it's all going on out there, and I have to. There is an interior rhythm that organizes itself. More complex change than just a figure eight. What I'm also doing, for example, is not holding the middle, but I'm holding a little bit more towards me. So the long end would represent this kind of visually is a little bit like a spear point, but the long end stays away. I don't want to go like that if that's sharp and pointed. Just being able to find the first change. Okay, so we've done figure eight, one-handed, and now we've done center circle fire water change, and okay, so good. Now let's go back to what I want us to be able to do is boom off of this motion, find the second change. Thumb space. And there are a variety of different ways to get into the second change. Second change. Figure eight, second change. Figure eight, second change. Find your own. Although, you know, if I gotta go da 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 da, no, within the flow of this motion, there's this. Within the flow of this motion, there's this. We could add that. Boom. We could add that. Boom. Right? But let's stay with it. many permutations, but we wind up. Boom, 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 boom. Find the second change. Boom. Find the second change. Find the second change. Find the second change. Find the second change. Oh. Okay. With me so far? Okay. Now, going to the center circle fire water change. Second change. Come towards each other. For example, here I'm doing several rotations. So if I'm holding the middle, and so I'm holding here, so the long end is always there. Therefore, boom, 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 boom. And you find your own way to that. Boom. For a while, you get a sense for what the sharp end would be. Okay? I'm just sort of messing around, improvising, but stick to the pattern for now. Okay, now, what I'd like you to do is play around with one hand, or shift to the fire water changes, but come up with the second change. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, you're with me so far? Now, either one hand, third change, thumbs face me. Try either the so here, this position, there's a first change here, but changes to the third change. Boom. And okay. Now the fourth change is not so much a hand change, it's really more of a body change. For example, if we were to shift venue a little bit, fourth change has an awful lot to do with that one. See, it's not just in the hands, there's a body feel to that. Yonkyo. So we're not going to go into that so much, but for example, any movement, boom, can have yonkyo in it. 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 Okay? Now, for example, the fifth change, the Gokyo position, is a good one. For example, you're going here in the 30 movements. We go into the two-handed, two-handed figure eight motions. And from the two-handed figure eight motions, you can go into the fire, water, center circle changes. Okay? It's almost like right here, we go this way. We go boom, 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 ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, sankyo, yonkyo, back to gokyo. Okay? So you see the fifth change is you can go, that's a nikyo change. Ikkyo. Sankyo. So the number 22 change. Right? Okay. So I'd like us to do right here. Okay, from here. See this guy, for me, this double figure eight is a very flexible motion. So I'd like us to 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Double figure eight. Left side, double figure eight. Double figure eight. Double figure eight. Okay, then we say off of that double figure eight, ikkyo. Right? Double figure eight. Double figure eight. Double figure eight. Ikkyo. Right? Or bo ikkyo. Ikkyo is also potentially a striking motion because this comes here. Boom. Can be a raising motion. Boom. Or a raising, lowering motion. Boom. Now we go back to here. Boom. But even here, boom. Right about here, I want to change, for example. Right now, that's that Gokyo position, which allows me. This is an ikkyo. Boom, we're thrusting back. Boom. Boom. I use that fifth change boom quite a bit. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom. That's third change. Boom. Thumbs face me. I rotate is the first change. Boom, boom. See how that boom, boom, boom. So what I'd like you to do a bit, we have a variety of things we can do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to have you start. You can go into the one hand, two hand figure eight, the center circle, fire, water changes, the double figure eight. But when I say ikkyo, I want you to be able to find that position. Or if I say boom, ikkyo, boom. Or if I say boom, sankyo, boom. All right, if I were to say yonkyo is interesting because it's almost like ikkyo, nikyo, sankyo, boom, all have that potential because it's not so much the hand, it's the body. Okay? So what I'd like us to do is start to move. Ikkyo, boom, try to find that position right now. Ikkyo, boom. Ikkyo, boom. Whatever the variation is, it's ikkyo position at the end, okay? So, spiritual teacher named Gurdjieff used to have people do stuff and he'd say stop. And then you're supposed to stop and realize what you were doing, where you were, ultimately who you are. So what we're going to do is from here, boom, boom, you can go into a variety of moves, but ikkyo, when I say ikkyo, find yourself in the ikkyo position. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. Oh. Ikkyo. And check. Thumbs face away. Ideally, body twisted. Got my right hand forward. My right foot's forward here. Again, move. Got your one hand or your two hand figure eight. Your center circle changes. Your boom double figure eight motion is ikkyo. And check. And check the process. We're looking for it out there, or there's a natural flow into ikkyo. Okay. Ikkyo. Okay. Now, let's check in. Like some feedback. We've gone through the 5 changes.
Sensei, this is very helpful. This is very helpful for me in terms of getting it, that last sequence.
Yeah.
And I'd appreciate it if you could get this one online. And
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of do this on your own a little bit. You just
yeah, one of the I can do that, but I haven't learned those hand changes as much as your group. And the other question I had was, when you say the Yonkyo move, is that the one you're expecting in level 3 on every strike?
Pretty much. In other words, the thing about the level 3, right, is that you're going to do a move, boom. There's that sense. There's like boom. See, there are different qualities, like insubstantial, boom, but boom. Each of those, boom. There's another quality, boom, boom. Okay. Yeah, so the Yonkyo is not so much a hand change; it's a body change. Now, a lot of the other ones have body changes, but they're more this type of thing. Yonkyo. Wow.
So when both thumbs are facing forward, is it that double spiral kind of grip on all of them?
The closing motion, there's a motion like here, boom, there's that double spiral. If you, for example, this becomes a forearm, you don't dig your knuckle in. That accentuates the change in the body. See, well, I kind of view the thing as almost like you got a tube of toothpaste, okay? Trying to break the tube. No, I should just unscrew the cap. Okay, that's a giant toothbrush. Okay, good. Okay, now, see, the tube is the forearm or the sword or the staff or the spear, okay? Now, what we're gonna do, we're now the tube. And that's the full one, jams up. Okay, so we sort of become the tube. This becomes the toothpaste. Okay, so there's a chain of cause to effect. Now the question is, if we're the tube, who is or what is squeezing us? Okay, I don't know if he's done it lately, but Nado Sensei is funny that way because we talk and I throw a term that he uses and he kind of jumps on me. But he was talking about self. And then he was talking about over self.
Yeah, and he was talking about pushing, the energy pushing you forward. So that's the same thing.
Well, what is a little bit, when you're being pushed by energy, a lot of times you're also being squeezed.
Yeah, that's what I'm learning from you.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens, I'm actually, by locking in, the energy is kind of not moving and is locking up. It's like I'm trying to get at the toothpaste, I'm trying to break the tube. No, just unscrew the cap. Okay. Now, in a funny sort of way, this becomes toothpaste. My body is the tube. Now, something is, I know, okay, I'm doing it now. Something is. So, if using the docence, I would say over self. Okay, so, this stuff gets pretty big at some point.
I've heard the term soft power and never witnessed it. It looks like soft power.
Well, soft power is power. Ultimately, there are different qualities, but the most memorable Yonkyo I ever felt was not somebody causing me the most pain by digging their knuckle into my nerve on the forearm. It was Tojima Sensei. I believe it was kind of two-hand Morote Dori. And he went like this. And here's my forearm. He went like that. And it was so fluid. See, this change here was so fluid. I just went in to grab him, boom. From the change kind of from insubstantial, boom, substantial. That's Yonkyo. But set up with the insubstantial. My feet went up. And I was in midair, and all the weight of my body was on his knuckle. And I was aware that, if he just wanted to go in midair, he could have probably snapped. So my whole body weight was up there. He could have broken my arm. Of course, he didn't, thank goodness. And all I have is a memory of, not expecting it, going in there, and all of a sudden my feet fly up, and I'm going down. My face is about to plant, although I managed to kind of take a good fall out of it. If he'd been like this and rough, yeah, he would have knocked me down and established the dominance. But instead, I have this memory of all of a sudden going in and being picked up and weightless for a second, although I felt all the weight of my body on that knuckle. And he just went like that. That's power. And you can call it soft or you call it hard. Most what people call hard power is force. Power has nothing to do with force. If you have force, you can coerce people. It's called, like I'm going to make a threat and I can make it happen. So I got control over you. Okay. That's the world. Well, Sensei was talking about making this a better world. The science of spirit and matter starting to work together. So my material substance, my body, participated in all of that coming up. He just went, and I went, and I felt weightless for a second. The only weight I felt was all the weight of my body on his knuckle. And then he just went, honest to goodness, all the yonkos I felt, that was the one I remember. And as such, it's a teaching tool. So he wasn't strong enough to break the tube of toothpaste. That would have been breaking my arm. Thank God he didn't do that. But he was smart enough to take the cap off. And all that came together, the actual motion. My body was lining up for that. And then all of a sudden, right here, it's almost like, that was incidental. Something. And I was a part of the toothpaste going out at a pretty rapid rate onto, metaphorically speaking, the toothbrush, which was the tatami. That's a direct teaching. In other words, it's like, well, how do you do that? Well, you have the mechanics of the technique, you knew the technique, but there was a lot more going on, obviously. Okay? And moments like that are your teachers, right? You might have given me instruction on how to do this and that, but that's pretty direct. Okay? So within that, let me check the time. Well, we're fine. Anybody, Audrey, does that make any sense? The actual closing motion here. See, this doesn't necessarily have to be closing me in. Boom. Boom. Any motion.
Yes, thank you very much. That is very enlightening.
Yeah. So the fourth change is, in other words, there's a lot of energy around, but it's pushing me around. I feel kind of constricted by it. But conversely, it's creating too much chaos for me to handle. All of a sudden, I realize there's a beat to that energy. And instead of disorienting me or crushing me, I become a channel for it. And it follows a harmony, yin to yang still, boom. So at that particular point, that's why I would say the yoni is an important one, because any form, all right, boom, you can boom put that yonkyo change into. You don't always do it, because sometimes, if a tank is coming, you don't want to try to yonkyo the tank. You want to let the tank go and not be there. Then the tank has to move around to find me, and then maybe I can work other energies and see. So, people tend to fall in love with that. So we kind of, it's an important one, because we're either feeling pushed by it or we're channeling it. letting it pass through us, we stay calm. Conversely, there's also this sort of push. If you're feeling pushed like that, just be kind of easy with it. But all of a sudden, we're directing the push. And we can put it into good things, not necessarily, I'm going to push, you push me. Okay. And so, as Sensei says, we have to harmonize spirit and matter. We're very complex. There's a biological matter. Okay. We have a psychology. Okay. And we're also energy. Now, spirit, it's what we do with that energy and how harmoniously we exist as biological living matter, very complex. Okay, so that Yonkyo. See, if I'm a little bit into the idea of it, then it's like, and you've got, there's that, and then there's also other energies, other qualities, other aspects of you. Okay? I don't know if does that make any sense right there? So
Yes,
Yonkyo is in all, Yonkyo is an option at any point. We tend to think of it as a technique that causes forearm pain when we're training. It's not anybody's favorite, unless you like to create pain. Some people like it. I remember, not in the Shinku dojo, but I went up north, okay, and one of the instructors would take and he would, so he had a big knuckle, so, and everybody in the dojo went, his Yonkyo. So, I go visit, and you got to feel that Yonkyo, and it was really interesting. And, I felt his Yonkyo, yeah, it really hurt. But I also felt Tojima Sensei's Yonkyo. And so, it was a point where saying, there's that. And you can get in there and make your knuckle bigger and more pointed. And yeah, you're going to create a lot of pain. And there's skill involved in that. But I was more impressed by that. Really. Okay? And, if you were to measure, who created more pain, well, yeah, this guy who rammed his knuckle every day 200 times into something, yeah, he was going to create more pain with that. But people like that sometimes are a pain themselves. Do you know what I mean? And, there's a difference, between what you call craftsmanship, okay, and artistry. And what Tojima Sensei had was artistry. And this guy had a lot of craftsmanship. It was very powerful craftsmanship, which you also respect, by the way. Okay, somebody who trains and does that, it's, a lot of energy. It's just I was more impressed by the artistry. Okay, anybody else with anything right there? Well, just going on here, for example.
Sensei, I have a question. Yes. It's kind of the opposite of Audrey's in that it is the most mundane question.
Yeah,
the mechanic of going from the spinning with two hands to the Sankyo, I'm having difficulty. I'm having an easier time with Ikkyo and Nikkyo, but the Sankyo one, to get to that position, and it's a little difficult for me.
Well, what you do a little bit, for example, here, one hand feeds the other. Now, for example, here, that's the Nikkyo position. If you go like this to turn the body, it's the Sankyo position. See, that's interesting because, you have have an ikkyo position, but if you just rotate, it's sankyo, isn't it? Ikkyo, sankyo, sankyo, ikkyo. Okay, now this is just a little turn. It's sankyo. Sankyo is tricky because, you know, see what I find, for example, I've got this here. Boom, boom. Sankyo is by far the most adaptable movement, but Sankyo, if you turn it around, Sankyo. Boom. Ikkyo, Sankyo. Boom, 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 boom. So a lot of the steps, you got to mess around. Got to sort of mess around with it. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Well, that's Nikkyo. Right? That's Sankyo. That's Yonkyo. Okay. Boom. That's Gokyo. In fact, one of the reasons we have the 30 movements is they're all in there. All right. But there's difference between knowing something and having a command of what you know. Boom, boom. Okay. And one level of command is craftsmanship. The craftsmanship to what you do, that's form. But boom, 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 boom. You have a command of what you do. Artistry is a little different than craftsmanship. Craftsmanship sometimes takes you to artistry. Or some people are just craftsmanship, craftsmen or craftswomen. But if you find yourself having trouble with it, spend a little bit of time saying Nikkyo, you just go like this, is Sankyo. Ikkyo, if you just go like this, is Sankyo. Okay. Sankyo, for example, the thrust both forward and back. Nikkyo. Sankyo. See? Ikkyo. Ikkyo. Sankyo. It gives you a sense, just you gotta play around with it. You know, there's a lot of Nikkyo. Nikkyo is the thumbs here. We do that a lot. We do that an awful lot. Well, thing about Nikkyo is that it's a little bit like you're rowing right here. You can go this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. The other ones, you know, you're making changes. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, this way. And see that? Almost like, you know, what's very solid, boom, has a whip action to it. Boom. And if all you are is heavy, you don't get that. All right? So, that whip action is what Tojima Sensei taught me. In that whip action. And it was soft. It was not hard or rigid at all. He just all of a sudden went boom, boom. And I went splat. And there was again that feeling. It's not anything I'm making up. It's more like, okay, it's actually become clearer to me over the years. That whip action, I felt weightless in it, except it's almost like I felt all the weight of my body on that knuckle. He just went like that and pointed that knuckle down, and I went right there. And all my weight's there. If he just gone a little, he probably could have broken this arm. I mean, you know, the thought of it is, you know, people said, how strong is a Yonkyo? Someone says, Yonkyo, the thing about the pain, that was the best Yonkyo I ever felt. That was the best Yonkyo I ever felt. And it was not your normal, oh, that's Yonkyo. It was something else. So my Yonkyo is a little bit less like I'm going to go in there and create more pain. No, I'm going to understand that action. Okay, all right. Does that make things a little clearer? I don't know if I kind of answered your question or not.
No, that was terrific, Sensei. Thank you.
Yeah. So just take movements like this. This is an ikkyo motion, but it could be yonkyo. This is an ikkyo motion, but boom, there's also boom, yonkyo in it. Okay? Tojo Sensei's nikkyos were not, they were kind of like, I just asked her because I wanted to feel it. So after class, I said, could you nikkyo me, please? Everybody cracked up. And we were sitting seizo, and he just had me tapping out flamenco rhythms because he studied flamenco guitar. Everybody said, oh, Jack's tapping. And it was like, it was a very powerful nikkyo, but it wasn't because it hurt. So, the nikkyo and the yonkyo were sort of somewhat related. That ability to but you're not being squeezed. See, a lot of what Osensei is talking about, he says, you're a Tanren spirit, right? Things happen to us like the pandemic. But instead of squeezing us or whatever it is, we hone ourselves. And if we're warriors out of that spirit, then we can't go out there and create a better world with that energy. Tojima Sensei's nikkyos, his yonkyos, they were powerful, but they weren't powerful because they hurt. Hikizuchi Sensei's nikkyos and yonkyos are more like he's putting a laser drill into you. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of craftsmanship in it. Tojima Sensei's had some, it's different sometimes between craftsmanship. You respect that. Yeah, that's in artistry. They're different. Okay? So I've always been. There's a lot of changes that are going on here, but I'm just keeping pretty much the same grip, whether it's Sankyo grip or Nikkyo grip or Ikkyo grip. I said, okay, what is that? Well, it's a Sankyo grip, Ikkyo grip. Ikkyo grip, but with a Yonkyo feel. So you got to kind of mess around. So what I'm going to do is just let you guys mess around for a little bit. We'll compare notes. Move. Okay. Anybody notice anything? Is that space or just sort of let things sort of, unwind, unravel? You're unraveling.
Sensei, it's Chris. One observation that I have is that I find myself doing the Gokyo change unintentionally quite often just as a transitionary movement that also just seems to be part of the flowing, as opposed to the other four, which seem to be more long-lived. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's your system. Okay. For example, if I go here, all right, a Yonkyo. We'll go back into Osensei's Tachi-riki powers. Tension, release. Tension, release. Somebody else might get totally the difference,
Hi.
Boom. Formless, form, formless, form. Yeah, that's why you got to play around.
Hi.
Yeah, you see what I mean? But that's good. That's a
Yes.
transition for you. You're starting to understand your own system. It may be, what Bruce Lee said, I think is very important. So the teacher is just finger pointing to the moon. And if you mistake that finger for the moon, you miss a lot.
Hi,
Right?
Sensei.
Yeah. So in other words, your system, what you're saying, okay, the Yonkyo boom is a transition thing for you. Okay, you boom, they expand out. Boom. Okay, so that's good. Anybody else with an observation you care to share on the?
This is Cliff again. Sensei. Last round we did, I noticed, based on what you said about the difference between Ikkyo and Sankyo.
Yeah.
I did notice.
Sankyo's right at your fingertips. You might not recognize it. You see what I mean?
So I noticed like where I came out of the spinning cycle was a big deal as to what I wound up with. And so like there's just different aspects. There were some moves that were more conducive to different parts of the spin to come out of different. Yeah,
you'll find the spins are there because, to some degree, most people find them kind of chaotic. Boom, boom, boom. But what happens for me? Things, part of this motion, things speed up. Yeah, and I can't follow. But part of this, you're all of a sudden, boom, boom. Okay. And this is a fantasy, but this part of like, you're jamming with Charlie Parker, Chet Baker, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, there's overemphasis on the horns, and you're just picking your spots. And you got all this, and they're not playing for an audience. They're just wanting to just let it all out. Ooh. And you are just, the old expression, you're kind of grooving with everybody else. So, oh my God, I'm playing with Charlie Parker. Yeah. Wow. 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 Man who unfortunately passed on recently because he's a beautiful guy. Man named Eddie Gale. Great trumpet player. Kind of when I was going tutu, he kind of befriended me a little bit. I played a couple of little, I was invited to sit in with him in a couple of places. And he just called it something like the PhD of the bandstand. In other words, you're out there with everything else that's happening and you don't know what you're doing. You're just on point with it. Boom, 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 boom. So instead of going, as things speed up, see, as you get that push or the squeeze, things go fast, okay? But certain people, the Charlie Parkers, the Chet Bakers, in movement, the Stephen Currys, as fast as things go, they slow down for you. There's a kind of a nirvana there. And I get it sometimes when you're just kind of, what am I doing? No. Sometimes I get it when I'm playing my horn. Last night was pretty good. Okay. And sometimes, when you're trying to go out there and produce it out there. But, this is more what we call the transformational place. You're coal. You're a diamond. And all of that is kind of you're just in rhythm time, but you may not even understand it. Right? If you ask Miles Davis or Chet Baker how to play a riff, they might just kind of look at you and say, duh. Fit in. Find the spaces between the beats. And you find your own place within all that. And instead of feeling the squeeze as things speed up, you're getting clearer. To me, that's kind of what was O Sensei's genius. Taking all these stupid challenges, people trying to kind of do this and that. They were going to come at him real fast, not to be their student. In fact, some of them became their student because they didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't necessarily out-technique them. He Aikid. So not all of them, but a couple of them. The story about, one teacher, Arikawa sensei, he used to go around challenging people, beating them up. And if they were martial arts students, they have to give them a month's tuition that they collected from their students. So that was how he made his living. So he goes to challenge O Sensei. He looks at O Sensei and says, I want to be your student. He didn't say, okay, let's go at it. He said, yeah, what you're doing, that's what I want to learn. And so there was something about what he was doing. We're getting such a squeeze here. And most of the time, that's very disruptive because when you get this, things speed up. The energies can get very chaotic here. But instead, and that's what O Sensei, I think, meant with, you have to blend spirit and matter. This matter goes this way, or everyday consciousness goes this way. But we can use that squeeze or push to get us to spirit. And the word spirit can also be something like soul or self or true self. So let's see, here we have, I think what we will do, I'm going to go back inside, so get out of the glare of the lights. So, okay. Okay. So, by the way, the t-shirt was a gift from Yu Chen, one of the teachers at the Aikido San Jose school. And it's a Harry Potter design. Because El was looking and says, well, you got the circle, you got the triangle, you've got the center. Where's the square? I said, it's not the Aikido cosmology. The wand, the ring, the cloak. I'm not that into Harry Potter cosmology. I've been told I should read that stuff, and I probably will someday, but I haven't. But anyway, anybody with question or observation on that? You can. That's. I'm just trying to give you tools. See, we have the 30 movements, and what happens is that you know, there's the Ikkyo change, movements 1 through 10, and then goes to Nikkyo movements, you know, 11, 12, 13, go Sankyo, 14, 15, 16, go back to Ikkyo, 17, Yonkyo, 18, back to Ikkyo, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now, first change, fire, water, center, circle. Another change, fire, water, center, circle. All right, so, you know, that is, the problem with that is that we you know, all of a sudden, you know, it's the way Bruce Lee put it. You see the finger pointing to the moon. That's good. That's an indicator. There's a moon over there. But we fall in love with the finger and we miss the moon. And so, you know, the thing is, it's good to have that because, okay, now you've got the design of it. And when you start to kind of do the end sequence, boom, you can kind of get that to kind of flow, then you're actually putting together a pretty sophisticated piece of motion. Once you get to the fire, water, double figure 8 changes, you know, if you kind of look at yourself, you're starting to use the staff a bit more like what Sensei did. He did a lot of that stuff. And most of his students, you know, they formalized it into this number or that number. So we have a 30 movement. Okay. So, you know, it's just, yeah, you got it. There's a number. There's each of the moves has a number, as a place within that. But the actual sense of it, I think Sensei spent a lot of time, and he might not have called it messing around. There's this research. There's research training, right? If you don't, you won't. Then you'll be stuck with 1 through 30, and that's fine. But, you know, the kind of the spirit of adventure, you know, thinking, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. And, you know, like Cliff today saying I have some trouble with the third change. Okay, but if you take that, you turn it around, you got 1 to 3. In fact, you know, when I'm messing around, the change that comes up for me the most is the third change. Okay, now, for example, if I had a spear, see, if somebody were to say, okay, we're in samurai days, would I choose the sword? No, I would choose the spear. But what I would do is shorten it, because what happens is you get the long spear. That's battlefield stuff. If you bring that spear inside, there are too many obstacles. It limits the movement. The length works against you. So I would have a spear length, you know, including the cutting edge and the piercing side, just a little longer than a regular sword. And, you know, the edges means you can cut with it. Not as well as a sword, but you can pierce with it. And, you know, you can wield it because it's shorter. You know, you can deal with it interior, right? If you're inside, you got a big spear, you're going to go like this, and it gets caught on the refrigerator, you're toast. So I would use a slightly longer than sword length spear. Or I'd be a little, like a, great show. If you watch the 60s Westerns, was the rifleman. Everybody else is, the quick draw, right? Now he creates an assault weapon in the Old West. And so, if somebody else is drawing, he goes, bam. He doesn't have to but he can, he's got an assault weapon. I mean, that was, so they would come up with these quirky gunfighters, and he was one of them, the rifleman, faster than any pistol shooter, the rifleman, something like that. But the spear, the shorter spear is what I would use, because, the other thing is if you're doing multiples, right? And they get inside the length of the spear, you're in trouble. That's why I essentially perfected irimi, not just for the sword, but for the spear. You enter, you neutralize, because the tip is out there. Boom. And a lot of our movements, not just, and conversely, when the body changes off of the spear, oftentimes, or what you find these days, if you go into, the way Aikido is being taught, especially Aikikai, which is fine, but entering, turning, they're doing everything with a much more of a square posture, and they're doing everything off of the sword, which is much easier. Well, Sensei's movement was almost all spear. If you look at it, yeah, he could use the sword, but if you watch his movement of the sword, he's using his body changes or spear changes. Okay, and boy, is that getting lost. And this becomes okay. Now I posted, there was a video that I posted of Master Choi online, and so somebody, on YouTube, you can get comments. And so somebody says, he breaks all the laws of the classical Yang style, but I sense he's really good. Yeah, Master Choi was a master because he had an enlightenment experience or an awakening, a major one. And therefore his form itself, but boom, he could do things. Go, wow, he seems to be able to bend space-time a bit. Huh. There's a difference between craftsmanship and the classical Yang teaching, and all of a sudden, and so this guy had a very interesting observation. He says, I look at this guy and he breaks all the rules of the classical Yang system, but I sense he's good. I said, yeah, trust your sense. Because by the time it's standardized, oftentimes you're a very good finger gazer, and you're missing something, right? Yeah, in other words, I'll trust somebody, and how really, I mean, if you were to compare him to, I'm sure there are probably better Tai Chi technicians than him, although his movements were very precise. But we would have conversations and he would talk to me about his major awakening experience, enlightenment, if you want to call it, and how that influenced everything. I'll trust that. And I'll trust trying to find my own. All right? And somebody can help you out. Okay? But the one that kind of is a pioneer is the one that's tricky. I think it was 2016. It was the night before a CAA meeting in San Jose. So we had to get the place somewhat in order. I can't remember if we did a division training or not. And so, I'm in the dojo after the cleaning, and there's a Warrior game on. And this was 2016. And they're playing a really good team. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they had Kevin Durant, they had a couple other All-Stars. And the Warriors, that was their big year. They won 73 games, set a record. And what happened was this regular season, and the Thunder are really good, playing the Thunder in Oklahoma City. And they're just right, they're up by 8, 10 points the whole game. They're in command of the game. But somehow we come on and we tie it. I'm saying we because I'm a Warrior fan. I didn't do anything other than watch it. And so it's overtime. And what happens in overtime, the Warriors get the ball. I think Iguodala, who unfortunately we had to get rid of because of contract stuff, he gets a rebound, he throws it to Curry in the backcourt. And we have, I think, about 8 seconds to go. And that's enough time, and everybody expects them to try to work the ball. But Curry times it so that, he pulls up from about 40 feet. Nobody expects it. Because they expect, okay, you're going to get closer to shoot from 23, 25 feet at best. It's like, no, he just pulls up from 40 feet. And he hits it. And it's enough time in the air, right? Where, but then it goes through the hoop. It's like they have 3/10 of a second. So it's not over, but pretty much it's over. We're leading by 3 points. They have 0.3 on the clock. Okay. And the announcer was famous for his, if somebody makes a big shot, he goes, bang. And then Curry pulls up from 40 feet and he goes, bang, bang. Curry gets 2 bangs. And I'm watching that. And it's like Don Juan says, something stops the world for you. Now, a lot of people pull up from 40 feet and they're getting pretty good at hitting that shot. But way back in, lo and behold, 2016, 5 years ago, nobody did that. And so, there's a sense, what Osensei was doing on his level, nobody was doing. You could argue that nobody's been doing it since. He was talking about stuff that, you were like, oh, yeah, that word's so great. But, the bang, bang, it was really funny. It's the next day. See, Aikido get together. Everybody's talking about it. It's almost like all of Northern California's seen it. So, Frank Duran sensei's, in the office we're hanging out. And so I just kind of go, did you see that game last night? And what he said was interesting. He said, I did. He said, I was in a Chinese restaurant. I was concerned about the basketball game, but all of a sudden, everybody in the restaurant starts looking at the screen. Everybody. And so, I saw it. And there's a point where, it's not a personal moment, but there was that, that combination of total command. And in its day, it was as outrageous as you could. And it wasn't like he threw the ball up there. He took a jump shot. In fact, they had a really good defender out there, a guy named Elvin Roberson, whose job was to negate Curry. And, what the problem is, he was expecting Curry to go in and take an ordinary 3-point shot, and Curry pulls up from 40 feet. The guy goes way too late, and boom. And for me, that was like one of Osensei's shortcuts. Wow. Woo! Stop the world. Whoa. Because there's a combination. That's not what you call craftsmanship. Although the craftsmanship, when Curry pulls those shots off, he basically shoots. He doesn't throw the ball there. And now you get a bunch of guys making shots like that, but nobody prior to that would have the guts to take that shot. Okay? So, what's funny about O-sensei is in his own way, he was doing all this stuff, and nobody has the courage to take his shot. I know that's tricky, and I look at myself, and am I a coward? Probably. You see what I mean? You're facing a life and death situation. That's a pretty intense, and things are going at the speed of light. And for you, there's just a pure truth of who you are and what the universe is. And you see right through what's going on. Boom. And that's me. So, Mr. Curry's shot, is in a much different arena, right? It's professional sports. But, the other team was not interested in him looking good. They were interested in winning. Okay. And occasionally you get something that transcends that. And that for me was that shot. The only other thing I can think about that affected me, and it was like a crazy, crazy thing, was when my daughter was born. We had a home birth. I caught her as she was coming out. We had midwives and a doctor lined up in case something went wrong. And I caught her. And I put her right here. And I was wearing a brown shirt, short sleeve with black stripes. And second, I held her here. It was a reflex action on her part. She tried to nurse, wrong parent. But I remember that. It was a point where, wow. And so, it makes no sense that somebody shooting that shot would have that level of effect on me. That would make it that memorable. But again, that's artistry. Tojima Sensei's Yonkyo. I mean, I'm in that. I'm not just watching it. But sometimes, it's like, wow, that thing was, even though I was just watching it on a tablet, streaming it, there was enough power in that action that it created a real, it stopped my world. And so I think what O-sensei was trying to do is say, look, this is who you can be. We can all be like this. And we tend to kind of stop short. I remember that same year, that was the magic year, where Curry got in the history of the NBA, he's the only guy that was voted most valuable player unanimously. Nobody else got a first round. Everybody number one, then you go 2, 3, 4, 5, and they have lesser points. And one with the most points wins. But you get the most points for being the first choice. And everybody, he was number one choice. I don't know if there will be anybody else that way. And they're at the All-Star game, and they're dribbling out the clock. And he's standing just, in the corner, mid-court, it's just in. So really it's longer than a mid-court shot. And he takes one dribble and he puts up a shot at the end and he hits it. And then, because it was like, I'm about 70 years old or approaching 70 at that time. And, he's doing so many things. I go to why? How does he do that? Just to get into his flow a little bit. Just begin to feel, that. And so, one day I actually wound up going, and for whatever reason, I go out there to that spot and I'm getting the ball there. I don't make it. I go to the other side and make one. I don't know how I'm getting the ball because he took one dribble and put it up. It was not a throw, it was a shot. And so the next day, I go there and I shoot until I make one. And then I grabbed Frank Silvey, who's one, Frank Silvey sensei, and I said, "But you come to the Y." And so I gave him my phone, and I'm warming up, and we got one. There were a couple that I made, but it was like, there. And to this day, I absolutely don't know how I get the ball there. I got pretty good at it. Okay, I wouldn't want to try it right now, because I haven't picked a basketball up in a year because of the pandemic. But there used to be, go to the Y and full court, right? So the only time you really had was when they were over there. And so I got to where I would take one shot and it would go in. And when I hit my first shot, I wouldn't take other shots. It was just, there's a certain space there, right? And now a lot of people practice that way, but in those days, I always had a fascination that way because, there's a difference between craftsmanship and artistry. Okay? No sense they have the craftsmanship, but if you look at them, a lot of people, Stan Pranin said, classical martial arts people look at a lot of this stuff. They don't like it. It's kind of like this guy saying, Master Choi, I sense this guy's really good, but he breaks all the rules of quote unquote classical Yang style. And there's some videos of him and his father. His father's much more like classical Yang style. But if you watch Master Choi, there's something he's doing. I think his father was really good. I don't think his father had that awakening experience. I won't call that enlightenment, but that area. And so, mastery is really just the sense, I think, of we keep going. So, I'm saying mess around. Master Choi, had that experience. His father was a Tai Chi master. So he made Master Choi practice. Master Choi preferred the street kung fu styles. He was practicing trolley foot and praying mantis and lifting weights and going out and fighting in the Hong Kong street kung fu street gangs. But he noticed that if he stopped doing his Tai Chi practice, his kung fu wasn't as good. Yeah, that was about it. So if I don't do the Tai Chi, my kung fu isn't as good. So he concluded that in what he was doing. So one day he had this experience where all of a sudden, apparently he merged so perfectly with the yin yang that his body disappeared. He was there executing the movements, but it was such a perfect balance in the yin yang that his body felt like it had dissolved. And then he said everything changed. He stopped doing he stopped fighting. He stopped doing the hard style. He stopped the bodybuilding. And he focused on that. And what he said is, boom, I understood. I was strong, but speed. I didn't understand speed. And so, he sit me down and talk to me about that. I said, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's his version of O-sensei's golden vapors. It's this individual. Okay? If you waiting for the golden vapors, that might not be what yours is. So, you know, in that way, you know, we as I said, you got to kind of mess around, but you do it real respectable. Because, you know, he's the source material. There's certain things I don't do, like, you know, sometimes, you know, go between the legs, behind the back, like it's, you know, like I'm dribbling a basketball. I might do that just to fool around, but it's not anything he would do. Because, you know, for him it was Budo, but it was also, the Budo was kind of tied to something much more original. It was tied to his enlightenment. So there's stuff that I could do that I don't do, because it would be not as respectful, messing around. So, you know, you're always respectful to the source material. And if you do that, oftentimes you catch a major flow. You have your own experience. So if you know, so Cliff, mess around with that third change, you're gonna learn a lot. But you know, yeah. Yesterday, for example, I got both my vaccinations, and I, you know, had the 2 weeks after the last one. So, you know, my daughter says, I want to go for a hike. Will you watch Nora, my granddaughter? I said, sure. So I actually got a chance to go in there, because usually we're at a distance and waving at each other. So I spent about 3 hours with her. So, you know, I found out a lot about video games and things, which she does a lot of now. She's a lot less active. We used to run around. She, you know, I used to try to, you know, she would just, my strategy was, I got to wear her out, because if I try to keep up with her, I'm going to get wasted. And so my daughter would come back and Nora would be asleep. She says, you wore her out? I said, yeah, in self-defense. Because, you know, but now she's active, you know, with the video games. And it was interesting watching some of the games, like, you know, asteroids, you know, where all these different geometric shapes and colors come in. But you're supposed to save the planet by just hitting selectively the triangle asteroid or the wavy lines asteroids. And so I sort of got this idea. I said, well, why don't we try that with the hand changes? And, you know, it's quite a good thing, because, you know, just with that, you know, the ability, and you know, she would miss. I mean, you know, the triangle would, you know, but most of the time she would, and then she's missing the triangle. And she did it right before it disappeared from the screen. And so I was thinking, maybe a good way of kind of doing that, and you can set your own game up. And see, one thing we were doing last week was it all starts with a thought. Okay, and the thought starts energy moving. And that energy moves into an action, which can be a shape, a form. You know, and to some degree, we're having an influence on the energies around us when we're working that process. Okay? And, you know, so that first thought, what's that first thought? My first thought is to stand. You know, I'm just going to stand up this way. But energy moves through the body. There's an action. Sit. So, you know, and you know, Sensei liked the biblical statement. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was. And I kind of want you to look at it. All of a sudden, that word comes out. And it's not a thought. We start to think about that word. We have associations with it. Maybe Sensei's first thought was Su. But then energy started to move off of that. Going into some sort of action. And so that first thought or first word starts motion, vibration, going. No first thought. No action, no form, because the energy doesn't move. Internal dialogue, I. Too much going on here. So as we continue to train, Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, Yonkyo, Gokyo, two-handed figure eight, one-handed figure eight, fire, water, change, fire, water, change. All of those things, I'm learning it because I got this dialogue. But the more we get back to a more original thought, that's why when I'm learning it, I'm thinking. The thinking is not the thought. When the sensei was saying in the beginning was the word, you could, in some sense, say in the beginning was the thought. Energy starts to move. Goes into certain structures. For us, it goes into actions or certain forms. If I kind of check with me, that dialogue is probably going on, but I'm in a different location. If I check here, the breathing is much more, see the circles a little lower. And my attention is much more acute without being too agitated. So all of a sudden, this starts to happen and things start to speed up. You're in that space where everything appears slow. I mean, fantasy-wise, I'm young enough to be playing with the Golden State Warriors in their championship day, and there's Steph out there, and I'm moving perfectly in coordination with what he's doing. And so all of a sudden, somebody falls asleep. I cut to the hoop, he gives me the ball, I lay it in. Or he's double teamed and everybody, so I pull up. So, there's an area, it's not about winning, it's just about finding that space. Again, since they said matter and spirit. The spirit is hanging in there here when things get really fast and finding that clarity. And so if you can find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're starting to lessen this internal dialogue to where you're going back towards maybe more of an original thought. Okay? That's just my own basic sense of it. I had a discussion with Mido Sensei about it. He was not terribly enthused about my model. But, you blend with people. He's got his model, it works for him. If you want to hear about mine, that's usually the way it goes. But that's okay. That's not going to stop me from refining my model. But, if I'm with him, I blend with him. And a lot of what he does is quite good. We find a lot of times we're on the same page, it's just his words. He reacts to my words. And so, I may react to his words. So we go, okay. Yeah, right about there, we're kind of in accord. Let's keep it there. That's the IT. The other thing is like, it's my metaphor. Like Chris, if you're finding that as a transition, that works for you. All right? My transitions are a little different. My transitions are it's going that way, goes that way. And there's kind of a space between this and that. But you might find a transition here, then the release that way. It's all good. You see, that's why it's basically, it's a journey of transformation. And we're all individual. There's no way, as much as O-Sensei was a great model, the other thing is that, we have to find our version of what he did. And he said, you know, his life and his art are very inspiring. But if we get too caught up on, well, he did this, so every day I have to do that, well, probably get some, you know, there's enough energy around a lot of the stuff he did. But on the other hand, you got to at some point say, okay, now that's what he did. You got to mess around with it respectfully. So you find kind of your own way. Other than that, we just wind up following patterns. And, you know, it's kind of like that guy saying, yeah, you know, Master Choi is, I can tell he's good, but he violates everything. I was going, really? Huh, wow. And so, you know, that made me say, you know, I don't think I want to investigate classical Yang style. Because, okay, this is how you do it. I get the feeling that his father, you know, there's some footage of him, Master Choi Hak Pong was much more classical Yang style. Master Choi, you know, the movements are very much Yang style sequence, but his movements are dimensionally different because they come out of his enlightenment or his awakening, whatever you want to call it, his big transformational experience. You know, there are a lot of words you could use. So for me, that's what we're all about. This is, you know, these are just guidelines. You know, I kind of do this stuff. But, you know, if I had, I mean, you know, I look at some of the stuff Curry does, and I wish I had a basketball. You know, I do, but the pump doesn't work, so I can't really inflate it to do that. And I would probably find, you know, I'm better with this than I am with this. But that's just the nature of things. So anyway, we're going to remember Sunday, even though it's Easter. It's an outdoor group thing, so it's precious. So we're going to be there, 11:30 to 1 p.m. on Sunday, Easter Sunday, though it be. So, so today's Friday. So there's the Sensei Revisited ended last week, so tomorrow is kind of a free day. So for me, anyway. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, Sensei.